welcome back to my YouTube channel called The Student Midwife. Today I'm going to be doing my video on the top 10 tips for personal statements. That was a mouthful. But no, I thought I could spend hours talking about like advice on how to write personal statements, but I think it'd be a lot easier just to tie it into 10 key facts. Now, when I thought about this, I thought 10 facts, you know, that should cover it. I found that really I could go on and on and on about different tips for writing a personal statement. But these are my top 10, and if you find that you like this video or you'd like some more, leave a comment below and I'll do a more in-depth video. But I'm hoping that with these 10 tips and the resources I'll leave below, it'll just give you a good start into writing a personal statement. So let's get straight in. Top tip number 1, draft and redraft. You are never going to write your personal statement perfect first time. So the best thing is to do is to dive straight in, write it, and then write it again and again and again. I mean, I kind of wrote 3 with very different kind of tones and then and different kind of layouts, and then I took bits from the bits I like best from each one and put them together, and then I redrafted that until I got my final personal statement. So it's a long process, but if you just keep doing a bit, changing it, and even if you write a bit, go away from it for a couple of days and then go back to it, that can really help, and you'll think, oh, I'd really like to change that, or that doesn't have the same effect as I thought it did. Top tip number 2, write a mind map, and I find this is really good to get a great structure to your personal statement. Sorry about that, excuse the dog. So, back on track. So yes, I find that structure is something I really struggle with. So having it all laid out and knowing the areas I want to cover really helped me. So I knew I wanted to have an introduction, my academic aspect of it, work experience, personal life experiences, wider reading around midwifery, having different offshoots on your personal statement, so with introduction, work experience, academic side, wider reading. Just put all your keywords and what you've read and what you've done, and then from those what you've learned, and kind of think of it as though you put on like a midwife brain and think, how would a midwife put that, or what can I do to relate that back to midwifery. Top tip number 3, sell yourself, because nobody else will. You might have 1,000 other people that also want a place, and so those admissions tutors are going to read loads of personal statements and they're looking for something that stands out, and it's sometimes really difficult to kind of, I don't know what the word is, sell yourself without blowing your own trumpet, because it can really feel like you're showing off. But I mean, don't be too overconfident, but do tell those admissions tutors what about you would make you a great midwife and why they should offer you a place. Show them that, because if you really want it, then you've got to make them see that and show them that you are going to make a great midwife. Top tip number 4, there are certain don'ts within personal statement writing. I'm just going to cover a few, there's quite a lot, but mainly, do not say, I love babies. Midwifery is a bit about babies, but it's not about babies. It's about women. Midwife means, in Old English, with woman, and so that's what your personal statement focus should be on. It should be on the woman, and that's quite a big thing really, so just avoid that phrase at all costs. Number 2, as a don't, try and avoid talking about one born every minute and call them midwife, because if you say, oh, I really want to be a midwife because I watched One Born Every Minute and I loved it, or call them midwife, they both give quite an unrealistic representation of what a midwife does, or midwifery in general. So generally it's just best to stay clear. Top tip number 5. Now, it's all well and good writing about what work experience you've had and what you've done, but it's not worth that much if you don't say what you've learnt from it. So you could have had the most incredible work experience in the world and done all the amazing things and got shadow midwives and done everything you could possibly dream of. But if you've not shown that you've learnt anything from those experiences, then it's not worth as much as, say, someone who, I don't know, volunteered to work in a care home and learnt loads of interpersonal skills, the importance of caring for people and dignity, etc. Then that shows, although that person hasn't managed to get necessarily midwifery related work experience, what she's learnt from the work experience she's done, or he, is outstanding, and that's all you can ask for, really. Top tip number 6. Every character counts. You have 4,000 characters when you write your personal statement, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. And you want to fill that character count for definite. So making sure that you're not using words like that are unnecessary or are just like lengthening your kind of point. If you can speak concisely and use words that say your point without being overly long, then that's great. Top tip number 7, have a specialist interest subject. So talk about an aspect of midwifery that you've done some further reading into and you find really interesting. Now for me, that was diabetes during pregnancy. So I read quite a bit of information about that because I found it really interesting, and in my personal statement I mentioned that I had an interest in diabetes during pregnancy, why it interests me, and then I also quoted a fact and what research that was from, because I found that really interesting. And I also then linked it to how that could have an impact on the maternity system as a whole. So having a specialist interest subject that you can talk about confidently and think about how that affects both the women and maternity services as a whole is always a great talking point. Top tip number 8. So the 6 C's are a big part of the NHS and their values. So if you haven't heard of those, I'll leave a link below, and they're really important. And if you can display throughout your personal statement that you have or could potentially bring, say, compassion or courage, any of those kind of things to midwifery by yourself being a student midwife and midwife, then show it. I mean, I'd avoid saying courage and compassion and etc., but try and show it in your words and how you find it important. So for example, instead of saying, I think being courageous as a midwife is important, say things like, I think it's really important to act as an advocate for women. So just instead of telling it, show it. Top tip number 9, show a willingness to learn. I mean, in our personal statements, it's really easy to kind of say all the things we know and what we've learned and what we've done, but I feel like it's really important to show that you are eager to learn more, and kind of saying that in your personal statement that you want to learn more about this and you want to be able to become a competent midwife, and what's kind of inspired you to want to learn more is quite important. And just generally showing the admissions tutors that you know that you're not ready to be a midwife, but you are really enthusiastic about learning everything there is to know and gaining the skills to become a midwife one day. And finally, this is my last tip. It's my tip number 10, and this is to differentiate between nursing and midwifery. I think occasionally if you're unsure about nursing and midwifery, it's quite easy to write a personal statement which you think could be suitable to both. But if you mention nursing or that as a potential career, then admissions tutors will most likely think you're not serious about being a midwife. It's very easy to write a broad brush statement, a personal statement, that you could used for both, but I think if you really want to stand out, making sure your personal statement is midwifery focused, sorry about that, is something that is going to really make you stand out and show the admissions tutors just how committed you are to being a midwife, and I feel like that's really important. So that's kind of all of my top tips, but if you want to learn any more, my recommendations would be Ellie Durrant's book, which I'll leave a link below to, and that just doesn't cover personal statements, it covers interview top tips, and it's just great for if you're in that application process, and I found it incredibly useful. And also specifically for writing your personal statement, I'd really recommend Ellie Durrant's Personal Statement School. I mean, I was kind of towards the end of writing my personal statement when I started the Personal Statement School, but I found that it really kind of polished off and finished and reaffirmed that I made sure I had everything in my personal statement that I needed. So that's definitely something I'd recommend looking into if you can. And I'll also leave a link to Ellie's YouTube channel because, again, her YouTube videos are great, and I found them really helpful when I was applying, and I'm sure you'll find that's the same. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to leave a comment, like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.